Hi, good day to you. We're going to do a little documentary, kind of a little special documentary today. You know, there are times that you happen upon something that is so fascinating that you can't pass it up. And we found this in Winslow, Arizona. We were there, as a matter of fact, we were doing the documentary very near there, another one that you have partaken of in that in a crater site there. But the Hohokam, an American Indian, all the way dating back to the time of Christ up until about 1400, and we'll go into a little more detail about them. But first I want to say, many people might say, well, why would a Christian network want to go into the American Indian history? Because many of them are Christians today, but I got some good news for you. Many of them, their religious activities are very Christian anyway. You find ancient Hebrew writings, example, the Bat Creek Stone. There were probably some of the better educated priests dwelling among the Cherokee, which they would probably not call Cherokee at that time, but the ancestors of the Cherokee, during the time that Christ walked the earth. Those things are extremely important. That documents that God's word in scattering his children, and quite frankly, I for one, as you've heard me say before, am very tired of the historians treating the American Indian as though they were a non-people, in a sense, to say that Columbus discovered America. America was discovered so long before Columbus, little old leaky vessel, made the trip that there were, as a matter of fact, Winslow, Arizona. You're going to see that there was a city there long before Winslow was, and it's almost within the city limits of Winslow, Arizona. Long before the Americans went there. It was a prosperous, thriving city and trade and many other things, and we'll document that from artifacts in this documentary. The things that have been found among the American Indian are preserve, if you would, the history and the events. As a matter of fact, I have spoken of a book by a friend of mine called The Sun Kings. I'm going to hold this up and have another camera give you a shot. I just want to show you one of the examples of ancient Hebrew being found in the Americas. See this little stone here? And this is from The Sun Kings. I want to try to notice that there is a crevice right here, a honed out place. Well, what is this stone? It is a weight that goes on a spear to give it more oomph, that is to say, to make it carry more weight. I want to show you, if I may, the title of this book. It's the one that I think every American Indian should have a copy of. The North American Sun Kings, Keepers of the Flame by Joseph B. Mahon. And we will show you the ISIC's telephone number and address where this can be. We do not carry this book, but every American Indian should have a copy of this particular work by this very good friend. You know Professor Mahon from his documentary on the Metcalf stone, plus two old houses, plus many other. Well, here we have this atlatl stone. In other words, the atlatl was the stick, you know, that you place the javelin on. In Wyoming, we even practiced using this, and you saw the good doctor throwing that thing great distances. This stone made this, tied to the spear shaft, made it sink deeper into the victim than it normally would. Well, here we have in Hebrew, and this was translated by Dr. Mahon, had the translation, and the lettering on that little stone is missile or javelin in the Hebrew language. So those languages were present in this country. And the Sun Kings is a fascinating story. Many people want to know, well, where did the where did the American Indian come from? Well, Dr. Mahan has made a lifelong research into the Sun Kings, plus another hardback, a very good book called The Secret. And again, we'll show you the address, or you can even dial our number and we'll give you the address whereby you can obtain one of those booklets. Especially interesting to American Indians. I hope that every one of you can see part of the pride that you should have in your people, and do. There's one thing about the American Indian. They truly have pride in their peoples. And God loves all of His children, and God plays no favorites among His children. But in the desert plains, wonderful, rich prairie grasses and so forth, we had the Hohokam Indians, and I'm going to just read a little bit concerning the Hohokams before we go into this documentary. We spent this time there, and it's one of those documentaries we picked up on the spur of the moment as we were there. If you ever drive through Winslow, Arizona, don't miss this one. All right, don't miss it. It is a state park there now, and you're going to meet in this documentary the park rangers, as well as the park manager. The superintendent there was so gracious to invite us in and tell us about the state park there at Winslow. Now, the Hohokam were one of the Southwest cultures centered in the Phoenix Basin of south central Arizona. Their influence, especially through trading, reached west to the California coast, east into the Great Plains, and south into Mesoamerica, and north to the Rocky Mountains. Today, the Hohokam are most remembered for several remarkable achievements. Some 500 miles of canals. I want you to think about that. 500 miles of canals. What for? Irrigation, of course. Ball courts, platform mounds, and finally made craft arts such as jewelry, pottery, and mosaics. Their pottery was just fascinating. It really was, and you're going to be showing some of that in the documentary. Most working archaeologists today believe that the Hohokam emerged in southern Arizona out of a long pre-existing tradition of archaic hunters and gatherers. But another school of thought holds that the Hohokam initially migrated north into southern Arizona from lands lying today in Mexico. Whichever the hypothesis eventually proves to be more accurate, the Hohokam had formed a distinct culture by around AD 1. Think about it, the year 1. 500 mile longs of canal irrigation, and some of those were wide and deep. When its members were emphasizing agriculture over foraging and producing polished redware pottery. Beautiful. During the succeeding 14 centuries, the Hohokam developed an increasingly complex culture, which reached its fullest expression after AD 1100, but by 1400 had slipped into decline. And by AD 1450, Hohokam culture no longer existed, or had changed to such an extent that it could no longer be recognized in the archaeological record. There was a fascinating thing about the religion, and I try to be very careful when I talk about religions of the American Indian, because I respect them. And for certain Christians, they're so easy to jump to conclusions and think that no one else has it but us, meaning some specific denomination. That just doesn't happen to be true. God is the Father of all people. But I will say this for the Hohokam, and it is these truths that amaze me, is they are one people that believe that you pass from this earth age into another. As a matter of fact, in their church meeting places, there is an exit or a place where they believe that the soul goes into the next earth age. And from my understanding, they teach there are about 3 earth ages. Where did this come from? So you see, our Father instructs His children, even as we find the Bat Creek stone with a Masoretic text note, a note to the text, where only a highly trained priest, Levitical priest, would have the knowledge at the time, which would be anywhere from 1 AD to about 146 AD, that would have the knowledge at that time to have written this perfect string of Hebrew, ancient Hebrew characters that would say, using the Masoretic note, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, may the voice of God be the poker that draws these firebrands back to Him. And there were 9 priests buried there. Yeah, there's a lot more to our culture. And our culture is the American Indian culture. All of God's children are one people. Therefore, we owe more respect and caring and research. You see, Columbus no way started history in this great nation. That means his story or kept records. They were kept long, long before that by the ancient ones, the Anastasies of a little further over, or back this way rather. The Anastasies were from the area we're going to visit today. I know you're going to enjoy it. Don't ever go through Winslow without stopping in. And hey, when you stop in, tell the crew, tell the staff there, the park rangers, how you appreciate them, and tell them that Pastor Murray said hello. Will you do that? They were sure sweet to us. They were good to us, and even at a busy time, give us of their time whereby we could share with you part of the village that was long before Winslow, Arizona, but almost in the city limits of Winslow, Arizona. The great gallant Hohokam people. God bless them. Listen now, won't you? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here in Arizona. Arizona, that beautiful state with many state parks which we have visited. Today we make it another one. I'm going to let the park manager give you the name and location. It's a park you're going to enjoy if you have time. It's a new park. So, Karen Bergman, park manager, thank you for allowing us to come here and visit with you.
Well, thank you so much. We're so glad to have you here.
And Park Ranger Ken Evans. Thank you, Ken. We understand we're going out in the field with you, and we're looking forward to it. Mm-hmm. Great, then. Well, Karen, just tell the folks a little history and whatever you would like and about the park, if you will.
Certainly. Glad to. We're here at Homolovi Ruins State Park near Winslow, Arizona. It's located between Petrified Forest and Grand Canyon. Those are 2 places that most people have heard of. We're just a mile north of Interstate 40 on 87 North. The park consists of about 4,500 acres, upon which we have more than 400 archaeological sites. However, most of these you would not notice if you walked over them. We do have 6 main pueblos here in the Homolovi group, 2 of which have paved roads leading to them, which you're welcome to visit. We're open every day from pretty much sunrise till sunset. Our visitor center is open 8 to 5 every day except Christmas Day. We do close for Christmas. We have a number of special activities that take place throughout the year. These vary from year to year. But for example, in 1994, in April, we are having a Gardening workshop. This is traditional Hopi gardening techniques, such as the terrace gardens, which they irrigate with the spring, and dryland farming out on the sand dunes. Many people who come here look at this area. My family thinks it's funny. They say I'm a forest ranger. We have 4,500 acres and 3 juniper trees. So they look out here and they say, well, how in the world could people live here? Well, their agricultural techniques were designed to allow them to grow their crops here. The seed they had, the corn, for example, you would plant about this deep, so it gets down to where there's moisture. These are the type of things that we're teaching people who come here. We also, in July, have an archaeology open house. Our archaeology field season is June and July, when archaeologists are working here in the park. And then the last Saturday in July each year we have an open house where you can see the sites which they have excavated and talk with the archaeologists. Next fall, in probably October of '94, we're going to have a harvest workshop. And this workshop will be teaching people the traditional ways of preserving foods and also of using the things they've grown. For example, how to spin cotton. So these are some of the things we try to do. Other activities we've had at times are teachers' workshops, which are open to teachers, scout leaders, other people who work with young people in teaching them about traditional cultures. So give us a call. Our number is area code 602-289-4106. And we'll be glad to tell you what activities are being planned. We do have a campground here with hookups. In the summer, it's water and electric hookups. In the winter, we just have electric hookups. Otherwise, the pipes freeze. Here at Homolovi, it's been quite interesting for me in developing this park. We've only been open since the spring of '93. When I started work here in 1987, we were just starting plans for the road system and the visitor center and all of these things. And we have an advisory committee which was working with us then, and we had folks. Let me continue. We had folks that were from the local ranching community, from Winslow, and from the Hopi tribe, both from the tribal council and tribal elders who have worked with us on presenting this and their culture in the proper way. Sort of interesting, among the Hopis, of course, they're very sensitive about how people interpret their culture. And the Hopis say that they are descended from a number of these prehistoric peoples, including the people of Homolovi. They call these people the Hisatsinum, which means ancestral people, and includes the people of Homolovi, Wupaki, Walnut Canyon, Mesa Verde. All of these are ancestors of the Hopi. Many people are interested in the Hopi culture because they have stayed so true to their traditional ways. One of the things that they've been concerned about is how this information is presented, especially in the schools, because here in Winslow, 1/3 of our students are Native American. When we first opened, we had a lot of groups coming out from our local school system, and some of the traditional Hopi parents would not let their children come out here because they were concerned about what we would say about their religious beliefs. We've been able to establish a good relationship with them, and now they send them out with no problems. The Hopis believe that knowledge can be very dangerous. If a child or any person is not properly prepared to receive this information, they could cause a great deal of harm. It's just like handing a loaded shotgun to a 2-year-old. So in their own culture, a child enters a kiva or a women's society when they are mature enough that they can understand what is taught them. And then they learn through a series of steps their traditional religious beliefs. So we are very careful here not to divulge information or tell these kids things which they should not learn until it's time for them to be initiated. Even now, after we've opened the park, the Hopis are taking a great deal of interest in the park. We have here at the Visitor Center, for example, we have some prayer feathers on the wall that an elder from the Sun Clan placed there. And I really appreciated that. I felt that they were showing a great deal of faith in us. In our special events, they do often participate in these, and it's a unique opportunity for people to learn more about these traditional people. At Homolovi II, which is the largest of our sites, we've had an ongoing archaeological research project. There are several things there that we found quite interesting. For example, a couple of summers ago, we found a crotal. This is a copper bell. It was also sort of interesting. It had been squashed. And everybody was looking at it and said, oh, that's a snake. And we had all kinds of ideas about what this thing was, but it turns out it was a squashed copper bell. But they come from Mexico. This is a major trade route here at Homolovi. The Little Colorado River is full of quicksand, except right here. There's some rock layers that come up close to the surface, and this allowed people to get across without disappearing in the sands. That's why the interstate goes across the Little Colorado here now, as well as the railroad and these prehistoric trails. As a result, we have a lot of different cultural things here. The local pottery is not that good because there's not a lot of material to fire it with. We have some excellent pottery, though, that came from other areas, coming in here again because it was a center of trade. If you go to some other parks, you may hear someone say, they disappeared and we don't know where they went. Well, this is one place they came. When other areas were being subjected to this great drought, which the archaeologists think caused many of these sites to be abandoned, agricultural conditions were actually improving here at Homolovi. So when those places were being abandoned, we had a population surge, with our main population here being in the 1300s. This was also a time when the Kachina beliefs were becoming probably more formalized. Dr. Chuck Adams from the Arizona State Museum has been doing a study on this, and that's why he's researching here at Homolovi. We have excavated a number of kivas. Now, kivas are underground ceremonial structures. Today on the Hopi mesas, the Hopi men use these underground structures where they give religious instruction to the young men and also practice various religious observances as well as just meeting together. We have excavated a number of kivas at Homolovi II. The kiva that we excavated last summer, it's quite large for here, and it has a sipapu, which is the first kiva we've excavated here that has a sipapu. The Hopis tell us that we're passing through a series of worlds. The three previous worlds were destroyed because mankind turned away from the Creator. So, because people had become so decadent, the world had to be destroyed. In each case, there were a few people who remained true to the Hopi way, and they were allowed to escape into the next world. In the third world, when it was about to be destroyed, the people escaped through a hole in the sky. And in this world, that was a hole in the ground. Some of the Hopis say it's near where the Little Colorado River flows into the main Colorado River at Grand Canyon. There's a mineral spring down there which has built up a large dome-shaped deposit. And the Hopis make pilgrimages there and leave the prayer feathers, the pahos, and have other religious observances. Others Hopis say that the sipapu is located in Central America, and that after they entered this world, they came up through Mexico and into southern Arizona, and there they split. And part of them went east and up the Mississippi and became ancestors of the Mound builders. The others continued up through Arizona, up into the Verde Valley, where Montezuma's Castle and Montezuma's Well are located. The Water Clan people tell us that from there, they migrated on up into Homolovi area. I'll get more into that in a moment. But I want to talk a little more about the sipapu. The sipapu, as I said, is the opening between worlds. When the people came up through that hole, they met Masao. Masao is a supernatural being. He is not the creator, but he owns this world, and he gave permission for the people to live here. He had two requirements. One is that the people must live in the proper way, like he did. He was a farmer, so all of you farmers, you have an advantage. So he was a farmer and he lived in an upright manner. The second requirement was that the people should start their migrations. They would travel around in their clan groups, and this would mark their territory. And they would continue this until the end of their migrations, which was on the Hopi Mesa. So they have finished their migrations. The religious structures, the modern-day kivas, all have a hole in the floor, which is the sipapu. It is symbolic of that opening between the worlds. And it is the passageway between worlds. Spirits of the Kachinas, for example, can come through that. Therefore, it's very interesting that only one kiva that we've opened here has that sipapu. Actually, what we found is a subsurface box. Many of these kivas, the sipapu is in a rock which forms the lid of a box under the floor, and that subsurface box will have prayer feathers and other sacred items. So we're looking forward to this field season to see what we discover as we start excavating more of the areas at Homolovi II.
Good afternoon, welcome to Homolovi State Park. Behind me are some of the ruins of one of the pueblos here at the Homolovi Park. This is a relatively late site. It's ancestral Hopi. The Hopi Indians migrated through here around 1160 or so. Some came before that and some came after. Much of the park that you'll be able to see today is all ancestral Hopi pretty much. There is a little bit of Zuni influence in some of the construction techniques that are similar with that up at modern day Hopi and at Zuni. But mostly we just say it's all ancestral Hopi. Behind me are some of the 5 rooms that we've stabilized. The park was first established back in 1986. Governor Babbitt supported the legislation, and Bruce is now our Secretary of Interior, so it's kind of nice to have a guy up in the political chain that can help us out every once in a while. These 5 rooms, they were complete houses pretty much. People didn't live in their homes back in prehistoric times like we do today. They would have to go outside, get their own water, bring in their food and their fuel wood. And sometimes a family of maybe 2 to 3 people may reside in just one of these little cubicles like. This section through here behind me was restabilized recently, about a month or 2 ago, in December and November of '93. It's been an extensive project because much of the stabilization that was done previously had eroded out a little bit, and we started getting some vandalism. These 5 rooms had considerable amount of artifacts in them when they were excavated. These rooms were vandalized a little bit by pot hunters, probably from the early 1900s to about when the park was established. It's been an ongoing reoccurrence out here to have vandalism. As we walk around the pueblo today, you can see up to my left here, there's some large potholes. Back in the 60s, this was a real popular place for illegal gathering of artifacts. The most popular pottery types that were excavated from here are the yellowwares, mostly the Sityaki polychrome jars, which are pretty valuable today, even in private collections as well as the black market. In 1903, I believe, before the Antiquities Act was established, the Navajo County Sheriff, Sheriff Watron, excavated over 1,500 pots from the pueblo alone. And back in 1896 and 1897, I believe, Jesse Walter Fuchs conducted some excavations out here along at Homolovi I, Homolovi IV, and maybe Homolovi III. I don't remember if he was over at Homolovi III or not. Many of the sites that you see out here are pueblos. We've also got pit house villages, which are in the late 700 AD to about 960 AD. In our pueblos, the main time frames for their habitation are from 1160 AD to about 1300. The pueblo behind me also is estimated as high as 1,800 to 2,200 rooms, and we have 1,000 plus rooms pretty well documented and roughly mapped in on a map to give their exact position. There's also 20 to 30 possible kivas on the site, which 5 of them have been partially excavated and several have been vandalized by pot hunters. As you look to the south, if we look behind us, is the Box Canyon, and that's one of the prehistoric trails which we'll be looking at next. It has several petroglyphs in it.
Really a shame. Look at that beautiful wall. Just clobbered.
If you want footage of good destruction, it's all around us. We've backfilled approximately 2,300 holes, and we have about 2,700 to go.
If you found, she had mentioned, I think up there, that there were as many as 3 stories in some of the areas.
Yes.
You've been down into the lower?
No, we haven't.
Not yet. It'll be interesting.
So basically, they just robbed the surface.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, they say they can go for as much as like, what, 30,000 a pot now?
84.
84,000 a pot.
It's a good market. It'd be nice if we could catch more of them.
Right.
Because minimum fine's about 100,000.
That's good.
That's if they get caught.
This is one of the things we try to do too. There's a site like this, you can even tell where it is, but a lot of sites we don't even, you know.
Yeah, we've been to National Geographic, Arizona Highways, Sunset.
Wow, good.
Behind me are the San Francisco Peaks. These are the highest mountains in Arizona. We have Mount Humphreys, which is a little over 12,670 feet above sea level. Then we've got, if we started at the south and worked across, we have Mount Eldon. And the next one on the large part where there's 3 peaks, the first one on the left is Agaza Peak. Then you got Mount Humphreys Peak. Then as you go back down, you get a little small rise. That's O'Leary Peak. And the one that's almost to the end is Sunset Crater. Sunset Crater is pretty interesting since it's the last active volcano that we had in Arizona. Its last eruption was around 1064 AD. So it's not too long ago. And there's ice caves underneath, which are very important to the Hopis. And I don't know if they're open for tours to the public or not. They may be, I don't know. These are also known as the home of the Katsina spirits. The Katsinas are supernatural beings with the power to bring rain needed to make the crops grow and produce a bountiful harvest. They played a very important role in the religious beliefs of the people who lived here, and the Katsina ceremonies are still conducted today up on the Hopi mesas. I don't know what the dates are, but I believe the Katsina spirits go home after the planting season. And Karen will be able to give you more information on that at the Visitor Center. As you look out to the north of us, we have the Little Painted Desert. The Little Painted Desert, you can see, had a lot of volcanic activity in it. And these little flat tops behind us is what gave Homolovi its name. Homolovi is Hopi for place of little hills. You can see there's quite a few little ones here. But it didn't apply to just this particular site or just this little batch of hills. The whole community of Winslow also had small hills on it, which have been, over the last couple years, quarried out and taken and put into the Little Colorado River. You can see some of the large formations above us. These are old possible volcanoes, in which the insides had solidified and the exteriors eroded away. And kind of in the middle of it all, there's a peak that's almost perfectly like a pyramid. That's a large cinder cone. To the north is the Navajo Reservation, and inside of the boundaries of the Navajo Reservation is the Hopi Reservation, where the Hopis live today. We believe when the Hopis first came to Homolovi, they brought with them a lot of technology from Chavez Pass and from the rim as they were migrating through. The clans that claim responsibility for the Homolovi Pueblos are the Sun Forehead Clan, Sand Clan, and Badger Clan. And we do have badgers, beavers, skunks, coons, and cougars living in the park still. Although we have had a lot of disturbance through the area and we're kind of in the middle between 2 very active roads, we don't have many deer or pronghorn antelope that once roamed this area pretty vastly. The river below us that you see is the Little Colorado River. It's It's also known as the Paiute. I believe it's how it's pronounced in Hopi, Payyu. It supported the agriculture in this area. They used to grow corn, beans, squash, cotton, pumpkin, and we found quite a bit of cottonseed in the area. And we also know from historical records that the Little Colorado River used to flow year-round. Before the Rio Puerco River was dammed up, the Little Colorado River used to flow much as the large Colorado River does even today. As you see out, there's a lot of cottonwood trees, tamarask, which is an exotic plant, but the cottonwood was used for fuel and building materials as well. As you look further to the north, to the northwest, it's the Rincon Basin. They may have followed the river up towards the mesas. Today, the Little Colorado River and its area, they look pretty dry. But when we do get floods, they're pretty severe. In January of '93, the Little Colorado River overflowed its banks and flooded the vast majority of the land that you see below us. You could look across the valley and you'd see nothing but water. And it was flowing about 2,700 or 27,000 CFS, or cubic foot per second. And we believe this may have been a problem prehistorically also, as the flooding. When the Mormons came in the 1870s, they had a hard time damming the river and controlling it for irrigation as well. The Hopis, they say they left the Homolovis due to the mosquitoes. And the mosquitoes caused a lot of sickness for the children and the people that lived here. Much of the area that you see below us is now part of the city of Winslow. And as we look off, you can see Sunset Pass. And just to the right of Sunset Pass is Chavez Pass, where there's other large pueblos, which is on the Forest Service property now. Below me is a large kiva. A kiva is a subground ceremonial structure which was used by the Hopi males for their ceremonies and some rituals. As you can see, this one's still pretty much intact due to extensive stabilization. Dr. Adams started excavations on this in 1992. And then they got a grant, and Bill Walker, who's doing his dissertation, got the grant, and they came out and they finished the excavation of the kiva. The only real damage we had to the kiva is this area where I'm standing. It's still a little low on the back side of the stabilization here. But back in the 60s, presumably, somebody took a large backhoe and just took a swath out of this wall and the bench below me. And when they excavated, they still had the scrape marks across the floor. So we've had a lot of vandalism, but now we're trying to recoup on that and make the public more aware. We have many school groups that come out, and we just give them a complete tour. And we have local teachers that work with the students to keep the archaeology and the cultural preservation pretty much up in their views so they know and to be aware of it. As you look down, you can see a ventilator shaft and a deflector stone. Prehistorically, the entrance was through the roof, and they just have a solid roof on it with a hole in it. That also allowed for the smoke to come out. And they'd climb down there, and then the ventilator shaft would bring fresh air in from outside, down through, and you can see where it's excavated in the bench, and still intact across the very front of the bench, and the large stone in the front's a deflector stone. Without the deflector stone, if we got a good wind, it'd just blow ash and hot coals all over the floor. The deflector stone served the purpose to deflect the fresh air coming in and circulate it around the fire. Where the middle blaze cone is, that's where the fire hearth was. And when they excavated that, they found some bones and a lot of charcoal. In this kiva, there was also a red-tailed hawk that was excavated. That was complete. Some of the other birds that have been found within the site are macaws, which were kind of a domesticated parrot up from Mexico. They're kind of more so seen around the Catalinas down in Tucson and some at Chavez Pass. Some of the other holes that you see, these are where we put in dry wells. even though we've done a lot of stabilization, if we don't provide proper drainage, it'll just erode back in because the water will seep back through the wall and erode out the mortar. Get an estimate of the size of the kiva. I'd project it's probably about 23 by maybe 40 feet at the max, with slight exaggeration since I do not know the exact dimensions of the kiva. Some of the other areas that we've had is almost to the surface here. You can see black plastic in the bottom. That's covering the floor up, covering some of the other floor features. But this was a back bench. Some of the pottery we have here at the Homolovis is locally made. Like this one here, it's a corrugated grayware. It's probably a cooking utensil. This one here was probably a highly decorated piece that was traded for from the Hopi Mesas, which is about 62 miles north of us from where we're currently standing. The local wares were fired with cottonwood, and cottonwood gave a real quick heat, except it wasn't a prolonged heat, so all the little pieces of sand and silicates wouldn't vitrify or melt together. The ones fired with coal, they're more like glass. Some of the local wares, if you pick them up, if you do visit the park, you can pick them up, look at them, and if you want, lightly drop them against the sidewalk. I don't know how well you can hear that, but it's kind of got a thud to it. Doesn't have a real nice ring. This is kind of like dropping a piece of clay. This one here was fired with coal, and it's vitrified real well. The silicates are all together real nice and tight like glass, and it gets a light ring. That's one of the ways to tell some of the pottery types when you come out here, whether or not they were locally made or if they were traded for. Some of the other local wares, like this one here, is the Homolovi orange ware. It's got a little slip to it a little bit there. And there's a local ware also. We currently have around 33 types of pottery identified here at the Homolovis. And we may also have possible Quaquina pottery, which is from the Zuni area, at an Adobe Pueblo site down off the park boundaries towards Highway 87 north. Behind me are some of the smaller batches of petroglyphs we have in the park. To the left of me, we've got a nice large panel. It's had years and years of erosion though. When the wind blows, it picks up the fine sand on the river and it just sandblasts them. Most of these were probably created by direct percussion. That's where the rock was hit directly against the face of the stone. And indirect percussions where they used like a chisel effect. They used like another rock as a chisel, and it gave more direct and precise petroglyphs. We've got some nice spirals, some things that look like wagon wheels. There's been different theories on what the petroglyphs mean, and mine is I just don't know what they mean. We use associative dating for the petroglyphs. Like Homolovi II is inhabited from roughly 1160 to maybe the late 1300s. So we just say that the petroglyphs were possibly created in that time frame by associative dating. And on my right, we used to use him for the logo of the park as a dancing Katsina figure. And the sun's at a rough angle right now, but about where my head is where his head is in the shadow. See if I can get out of it a little bit better. But he was a dancing Katsina figure, and he too has come to vandalism. A lot of the vandalism that's occurred in the park is people come in and they scratch them out, chisel on them, or they try to remove them to take them home, and it just destroys the rock and the petroglyph. As we go up even higher, you can see some handprints and some squiggly lines, which may represent animals or maybe a migration trail. We've got snakes in the petroglyphs, which are really neat. Some of the petroglyphs you're looking at now, we've got some snakes, but this one's also very long, so it may represent the river possibly. Then we've got maybe a centipede and a coyote. The cougar and the coyote, the way we've been told to assist in distinguishing them is the cougar will have its tail come back over its head, and the coyote just kind of comes straight up and stops. But we think that one there represents a coyote. And this next glyph here may represent a bird, but due to the spalding in the rock, we don't know what it was. And these depressions you see that look like little holes, those are actually ground into the stone and then pecked a little bit more. They may have been for a migration, or they could have been the heads of the snakes. The area we're looking at now is the floodplain, and this is where they used to grow their crops. This was flood irrigated, and they also did dryland farming in some of the sand dunes. And when Jesse Walter Fuchs was out here in 1896, he said he could still see remains of irrigation canals that they had built to bring water in to irrigate the crops. And they also did agricultural hunting. When the gardens were growing real well, it attracted game animals, and they were able to hunt the game animals as well. So it gave them a good supply of meat and their vegetables. This next group of petroglyphs we're going to look at are going to have some clan symbols in them. I don't believe there's a sand clan symbol here, but it's pretty popular. It has like a double outlined cross or a plus sign with like a balloon design going around it. And one of the other ones we'll look at is the sun forehead clan symbol. Some more feet, and here's some of the vandalism where they've scratched against the rock. They've taken another stone and polished out the petroglyph underneath. This is a frequent occurrence within the park, and different groups blame different people for it, but it's still vandalism. I don't know how he's going to show up real well, but this is the sun forehead symbol here. Opening of the Box Canyon Trail. We believe this trail was used prehistorically by the farmers and the people that lived here at the Homolovi. If you could picture a small Hopi child, maybe about 7 or 8, walking down with a large vessel, carrying the vessel down to go to the river to get some water. It'd be a lot of hard work. They carried all their crops up this way possibly. And there's a lot of nice rock art along the trail that hasn't been vandalized. People don't seem to want to get out of the car and have to walk to do anything. Get a lot of visitors. They follow our rules pretty much. They take nothing but photographs and leave nothing but footprints. So that's been very, very helpful. As you look around, you can see it's kind of a nice little enclosed area. And along it is a pretty harsh trail going up and down. As we go up, we'll look at some more of the rock art and maybe see some more nice pottery, maybe some yellowware.
Did you turn your mic?
Yes. Watch for loose rocks on your way up. This rock, they're kind of hard to see, but we have some clan symbols represented in the petroglyphs. We have a spiral, and we have like a handprint and kind of a smooth back coyote. At different times of the day, the lighting will be just enough reflective to really bring out the petroglyphs, and other days you can hardly see anything. The petroglyphs have also documented important social, spiritual, and celestial events in the lives of the people that lived here.
They were all over it.
Yeah, you've got this one pretty well covered. So you can get an idea of what they had to walk up to get to the Pueblo. Pretty rigorous climb. Many of the trails we have in the park have been funded by heritage funds. Heritage Fund is the Arizona State Lottery monies that are set aside each year. Then grants are given out of that for the construction and maintenance of trails and historic preservation, along with the purchases of property for preservation in vast riparian areas. We're climbing up probably a good 100 feet or so in this short distance. And here's some more of the petroglyphs that people haven't really vandalized them, but they've added some to it. You can see somebody's created a nice little Thunderbird here. And they've done some scratching on it, but so we got a nice little antelope figure. If we climb up a little bit more, we'll be on top of the canyon here, and it's a fairly easy walk over to Homolovi II Pueblo. And as you look across to the north, you can see the Pueblo. Look back across the valley to the east, you can see a little bit more of the Little Painted Desert. And up in that part of the valley, there's pit house villages. So we've got pit house villages, pueblos, and we've also got little campsites throughout the park. One of our oldest campsites is dated 365 BC plus or minus 10 years, which is located in front of the Park Visitor Center. So look across, you can see there's a lot of raw material for building, so they didn't have to go very far to get their building material. And as you look across the Box Canyon, you can see it looks like a little cave. There's several of those throughout that were used as shelters also for when they're migrating through. They used the rock shelters to get out of the weather. Sometimes there may be shrines in there. And the shrines that we do have within the park are off limits, pretty much, so we don't want them disturbed. So basically we don't show people where they're at or take them to them. You can get an idea of the trek down. Are you able to zoom in on Homolovi IV at all? Homolovi IV is that little mound kind of sticking up there. Yeah, if we were to go off of, let's see, if I stood behind you and we went straight off, you can see like a little hill there. That's Homolovi IV Pueblo.
The square top?
It's got a flat top on it. The Homolovi IV Pueblo, which we're looking at, which is located across the river from Homolovi II Pueblo, was inhabited roughly about the same time, maybe from 1200s to 1300s. It's about a 420 room Pueblo. We've done some extensive stabilization there as well, and it was also ancestral Hopi. I guess we can climb down.
Karen, thank you very much for having us
Oh, you're welcome.
and sharing this information with us. And your park ranger, he was so gracious to us, Ken was, and we appreciate him very
Well,
much.
Thank you. I hope you can come back and see us again.
We're going to do it. And just another word to you. If you are interested in this sort of thing, you can probably receive a better education here on the way it was in the past, which worked under far more severe conditions than we have today. So if you really want to gain knowledge and information that's going to help you, I would suggest that you contact this state park here in this great state of Arizona. Karen, thank you again.
Thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you all too.